Yes.
valve technology.
Yeah, he has to get them from Russia. That's he has them delivered over from Russia, so they might have like listening devices implanted in them as well. You never know. So, Brian, good to see you, man.
Great to be back.
Yeah, great to have you back. So, tell me about this tour that you're doing.
It's a world tour.
Try to keep this sucker like a fist from your face. There you go.
How's that?
That's perfect.
Yeah, it's a world tour. Starts next week in the UK. And then we go everywhere from the South Island of New Zealand all the way to the Arctic Circle, to Svalbard, which is the furthest north that you can go on a commercial aircraft.
Wow.
In the middle, we're in the States for a month, mainly in May. And it's about cosmology and about the questions that cosmology raises. So if you're interested in the science of how did the universe begin, even questions of what may have been there. Is the universe eternal? Is there such a thing as before the Big Bang? What is the future of the universe? How does complexity emerge spontaneously in a universe? I mean, we sort of take it for granted that there's a Big Bang and it's all hot and there's just this kind of hot glow of stuff. And out of that, spontaneously, in 13.8 billion years, you get something like the Earth with a civilization and life on it. So how does that... Do we know anything about that? I mean, we do. I'm asking the question rhetorically. We know quite a lot about it. So it's really about showing the size and scale of the universe, but addressing those questions that I think everybody has about what does it mean to be human, this tiny little finite life that we lead in a possibly infinite universe. How do you make sense of that?
Well, it's incredibly exciting to me that there's a giant audience for this, and that what Neil deGrasse Tyson had been doing and what a lot of public touring intellectuals are doing now. They're doing these giant theaters, and these people are coming out to see these shows, and we're realizing that there's, I hate to use the term market for this, but there's a demand for this, and there's a lot of people who are incredibly fascinated by this, and it's spreading information, it's spreading knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the UK particularly. I mean, Wembley Arena, for example. You're talking about 10,000 people, 12,000 people in these shows. And you're right, they are coming. Although they're big shows, spectacular screens and all that. They're coming to think. They're coming to hear about what we know about the universe and nature. And I think I'm not surprised people are interested, because these are questions that everybody asks. Just why am I here? Everybody's sat there asking that question. But my point is that there is a framework. There's a framework of knowledge. There are things we know about the universe. So it is true that scientists are not going to tell you why you're here. They're not going to tell you what the meaning of life is. But there is actually there are things you need to know if you want to start to explore those questions for yourself. I mean, you need to know that there are 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. You need to know that the Milky Way galaxy has got 200 billion stars. Most of those stars now we know have planetary systems. We estimate there are something like 20 billion Earth-like planets, or potentially Earth-like planets, in the Milky Way galaxy alone. So if you're asking questions about what is my place in the universe, you need to know those things, first of all. It's a framework within which you can think.
When you get to those numbers, when you're talking about trillions and billions and all those zeros, my brain just goes numb. There's this lack of comprehension that I'm well aware of. Like, those numbers get thrown about, I go, 200 billion. And it just...
I think everybody does. I think every scientist, no scientist can picture that number. I mean, even the small number, 200 billion, which is the number of stars in one galaxy. And then when you say 2 trillion galaxies, that's... I challenge anyone to be able to picture that, but it is the reality that we've observed. We haven't counted all 2 trillion, by the way. We have a thing called the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, which maps the positions of galaxies. So you know how much of the sky you've surveyed, and you know how many galaxies you've counted, and then you can spread that across the wider universe, and you get this picture of a vast and possibly infinite universe. I mean, we know that the universe, or very strongly suspect that the universe is much bigger than the piece we can see. So we have good reason to think that's the case. Whether it's infinite or not is another question. And then that goes to your, can you picture infinity? Well, no one can picture infinity. There's a weird thing as well about, we say the universe began 13.8 billion years ago. So that's a measurement. So because we can measure the speed that all the galaxies are flying away from us, essentially. and then so you can run time backwards, if you like, to find out when they were all on top of each other. And so it's quite a simple measurement, and we've done that. So we say the universe began 13.8 billion years ago. But actually, all we know really was the universe was very hot and very dense at that time. And we have some theories that the universe was in existence before that, and perhaps some sort of circumstantial evidence. And that means that actually the universe could have always been there, eternal. And when I talk to people sometimes, some people get upset about that. Some people would rather it had a beginning. And the idea that it might have been around forever is more frightening somehow than the fact that it began. And it's interesting the way that people's minds work. What terrifies you the most, an eternal universe or a finite universe?
Yeah, they're both incomprehensible. The eternal universe, if there was an eternal universe, does that negate the theory of the Big Bang, or does it mean that there's a constant cycle of big bangs and then expansion and then recompression? Or
yeah, it could do. So those theories are back in vogue. Some of those theories are back in vogue again. So yes, some of them say that there's a cycling universe. So the Big Bang is an event when space gets very hot and very dense and filled with particles. And that may happen again. Or some of the other theories, there's a theory called eternal inflation, which is a theory that, and it's actually the most popular theory, I think, at the moment for what happened, for why the Big Bang is the way that it is. Because it's got some very special features, the Big Bang, which we could talk about. But inflation is the idea that space-time was around before the Big Bang, and it was expanding extremely fast. And there was doubling in size in the most popular of these theories every 10 to the minus 37 seconds, which is 0.00000 with 37 noughts, 1 of a second. So it's an unimaginably fast expansion. And then the idea is that draws to a close, so it quite naturally sort of dies away and the expansion slows down. And all the energy that was taken, that was causing that expansion, sort of gets dumped into space and heats it up and makes particles, and that's what we call the Big Bang. And those theories, the slight extension to those, say that slowing down just happens in little patches. So most of the universe, the overwhelming majority of the universe, is still inflating at that insane sort of speed. And just little patches stop, and they're Big Bangs. So you get multiple universes, a multiverse. It's called the inflationary multiverse. And we are in one of those bubbles. And that's one of the more popular theories.
That's another one. I mean, right now, I'm aware of what you're saying. I can sort of visualize it in some sort of a graphic form, but it's incomprehensible. Like my mind doesn't have the capacity to expand this sense of distance and size to that grasp. Is this because of just the way we evolved here on Earth to deal with the space that's in front of us, and now over the course of industrial civilization and education, we're now grasping these concepts that are so